Hello everyone, this is Joshua Smith of Apollo's Artifacts. It is still 2019. In this episode I'm going to be covering the monster otherwise known as Dennis Hastert. Hastert was a Republican and he was Speaker of the House. Of course, that is a position of much import because were the president to be taken out and the vice president, the next person in line, could have been at one point this child abuser. So I'm going to be going over an article that was in USA Today in 2016. The title is Judge Sentences Serial Child Molester Hastert to 15 Months. It begins, former House Speaker Dennis Hastert, who less than a decade ago stood second in line to the presidency, was sentenced to 15 months in federal prison Wednesday for a bank and fraud case linked to allegations that he sexually abused teen boys more than 30 years ago.
Thank you. And after the shocking revelations in the indictment, another accusation against former House Speaker Dennis Hastert, alleged abuse of 4 decades ago.
He damaged Steve, I think more than any of us will ever know.
This is Jolene Burge, who accused Hastert of sexually abusing her brother back at Yorkville High School in Illinois, while Hastert was a wrestling coach. She told ABC News that her brother, Stephen Reinbolt, confided in her years ago when he revealed he was gay. He's now deceased.
I asked him, Stevie, when was your first same-sex experience? And he just looked at me and said, it was with Dennis Hastert. And I was stunned. I said, why didn't you ever tell anybody, Stevie? He just looked at me and said, who is ever going to believe me?
The FBI has also spoken to a second person as part of the investigation, not Burge, who was also alleged to have been a victim. Hastert was a wrestling coach and Boy Scout leader before coming to Washington in 1987. He became the longest-serving Republican speaker, leaving Congress in 2007 after Democrats won control of the House. He's been in hiding since the charges were made public last week. Jolene Burge said she confronted Hastert when he tried to attend her brother's funeral.
I just looked at him and I said, I want to know why you did what you did to my brother. I want you to know that your secret didn't die in there with my brother.
The federal judge over the case, Thomas Durkin, referred to Hastert, 74, as a serial child molester and rejected a prosecutor's recommendation of 6 months in prison on a banking charge that carries a maximum 5-year sentence. Hastert was additionally fined $250,000 and had to register as a sex offender. Hastert went on to admit in court, quote, I want to apologize to the boys I mistreated. They looked up at me and I took advantage of them. Now, unfortunately, they were unable to impose charges against Hastert for the abuse in which he had engaged because the statute of limitations had ran out on those cases. I, for one, actually think that these cases should be treated similar to homicide cases where you can't actually have a statute of limitations placed on them, and a victimizer such as Hastert can be held accountable for his actions. Hastert's victims in these cases seem to have ranged in age from about 14 to 17 years old. However, after he was released from prison, there was another person who came forward in order to accuse him, and that person said that they were 9 or 10 years old when the abuse first happened to them.
Members of the committee, my name is Scott Frost. I appreciate the invitation of the Chairman and Attorney General to join here today. This topic, while difficult for me to discuss, is one that cannot be swept under the rug. Earlier this year, it shocked the world to hear that Dennis Hastert used his wealth, prestige, and power accumulated through decades of elected office to cover up sexual crimes he perpetrated over many years. If not for the tremendous arrogance of Hastert, history might never have been corrected. Justice may have been avoided. And Hastert, a child molester, may have lived out his years with the honor and dignity of the long-serving Republican Speaker of the U.S. House, with a bevy of lucrative lobbying clients. The question I've gotten the most is, how do you feel about a sentence? Was justice delivered? Hastert inflicted unbelievable pain on the lives of the youth he was entrusted to care for. Yet he got a slap on the wrist.
Yet once again, due to the statute of limitations, that could not move forward either. The way that authorities had discovered this is that there were a number of unusual bank transactions that had been taking place where Hastert was removing tens of thousands of dollars from his various bank accounts and then being sent to places unknown. Once they were able to look into it, they found out that he was actually paying off a person in order to keep that person silent about what Hastert had done to them. But Hastert, being an exceedingly evil person, actually tried to frame this individual who he was paying for silence. I'll move down a bit here in the article where it says, Hastert in October acknowledged the transactions were made as part of an effort to pay off a man known in court documents as individual A for past transgressions. Authorities began investigating Hastert for unusual bank withdrawals after the IRS and FBI became suspicious of large financial transactions. From 2010 to 2014, Hastert withdrew a total of approximately $1.7 million in cash from multiple bank accounts and gave it to individual A. The payments were part of what authorities later learned was an off-the-books agreement Hastert made with the man to make amends for the decades-old sexual misconduct. And I really hate the word misconduct being used here for something so vile and heinous as what he had done. Hastert, of course, was worth millions of dollars because he went into lobbying after he had been the Speaker of the House. Move down a bit further here in the article. It says, when agents initially interviewed Hastert in December of 2014, he told them that he was keeping the cash he had been withdrawing in a safe place. Of course, this means that he lied to agents of either the FBI or IRS. An attorney representing Hastert later told authorities that the former speaker was the victim of an extortion plot by individual A. See, so this guy is absolutely just sick and disgusting. He tried to frame his victim. The article continues, Hastert agreed to allow federal authorities to record conversations he was having with individual A so they could try to prove the extortion charge. But it quickly became clear that Hastert had willingly entered an agreement with the former student to pay for his silence. In their recordings, individual A even reminded Hastert that he wanted to get lawyers or confidants of Hastert involved so that they could ensure the agreement was legal, according to court filings. The judge told Hastert, you tried to set him up. You tried to frame him. So not only did he abuse him when he was a child, he tried to frame him as an adult and have him sent to prison. And as I started to look further into Hastert, one of the other things that I found was that one of his sons was actually a lobbyist for none other than the Podesta group with John and Tony Podesta. And that could take us down an entirely separate rabbit hole, which I won't do at this point. But it's one of the things that you find out is that it's just a despicable nest of the same people who turn up over and over again. Just as before, I had the episode on Ed Buck, who is being accused of killing multiple black men in his apartment, and we have many photos of Ed Buck with none other than Shifty Schiff, who's right here in this picture because he's tied also with this Podesta group and John and Tony Podesta. But it truly is astonishing the way that you see these people always in the same circles, the same groups of people with one another time and time and time again. From Epstein to the Clintons to NXIVM to Hastert. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.